Welcome back to another episode. Today, our guest is actually an adoptive father. He's a representative from the state of Ohio. Please welcome Casey Weinstein.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Louise and Sarah. I'm really honored to be here. Really excited about this.
We're very honored to have you.
Yes. So tell us about you. We know you're a state representative from District 37 in Ohio. You served in the Air Force. You're married and have kids, and one of them is recently adopted. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I have an adopted sister too, actually.
Oh, you have a lot of connection to adoption.
Yeah. I grew up military brat, so all over the country, and we ended up in New Mexico for my high school years, and then went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs for college. And between my junior and senior year, or second class and first class cadet years in academy speak, I was working out in the cadet gymnasium over the summer. No one was there except for one other cadet on the other end of the gym. And I was trying to move a TV on a pedestal, like an old school cathode. I try to explain this to kids now, cathode ray tube TV, and it slid off the pedestal as I was trying to move it to the point to where I was in the gym. And I was stuck, sort of atlasing it, not well. It was about to fall off. And the other cadet kind of yelled over, "Hey, do you need some help?" And I grunted something, which apparently she took as yes. And that's how I met my future wife, Amanda.
Oh, wow. That's a great story.
She locked in the power dynamic for our relationship right there. And got the TV down to the ground. Great. And we got engaged a year later and married a year after that. And she was stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, which is in Dayton, which we'll circle back to in our adoption story. But I was in Los Angeles after graduation from the academy for my active duty assignment. And when we got married, the Air Force moved me to join her in Ohio. So that's what brought us here. And we finished up our commitment to the U.S. Air Force, and she pursued a PhD at the Ohio State University and is now a professor of economics at the University of Akron. And I went into the private sector for many years. Worked from home. So I followed her up to Akron, where she was hired in 2013 after graduation. So we've been up in Northeast Ohio since 2013. Very, very happy here. And, since moving here, have 3 kids. And, I got into, city council race opened up in 2015. I was missing that public service sort of component of my military service, and threw my hat in the ring. And won a city council seat, and then a state representative seat opened up, as you mentioned, in 2018, ran for that seat and was elected to the Ohio House of Representatives, and then reelected in 2020. So I'm in my second term, and I've worked on energy issues, veterans issues, lots of different things, clean water, clean air, which are really important to me and my family. And that's me. One of my favorite subjects.
Congratulations on your political rise. Do you have further ambitions?
When I think about that, it gets very stressful. It honestly gets anxiety provoking about, right now we're in a state of flux with regard to our maps with the districts. You've probably heard of gerrymandering, and that's a thing here in Ohio too, but there's all kinds of court battles, and we passed a constitutional amendment to make the process fair, but then it's not going very well according to the Constitution. So there's lawsuits. So, if a path emerges to take the next step, maybe, right? It's something that Amanda and I talk about. It's definitely something I'm passionate about and have been for many years, is public service, and how I can do that at the best level for me and for sure for my kids now. Yeah. So thinking about it.
We knew you win.
We knew you win.
So your kids, tell us about, I also want to hear about your sister.
Yes.
But, tell us about the adoption situation.
Yeah, well, my sister Amber lives in Tacoma, Washington, works for the U.S. Army. We've got a whole military family situation going on. And so she supports special operations folks in the Army as a financial analyst. I'm really proud of her. And yeah, I mean, she's, my sister, and our family grew when we adopted Amber. And that was such a neat thing. And, really early on with Amanda, one of our first dates, we just talked about families down the road, and she mentioned adoption. I mean, right then, right up front. And I hadn't really thought about kids at that point. But as we were talking about it, I thought, man, that'd be so cool. And then I don't know, it just always right then and there, it just always kind of became part of our plan for down the road. And when we moved into our current house, we didn't realize it at the time, but we were she was pregnant with our first daughter, her name is Nora. She's now 7 years old. And then 3 years later, we had our second daughter, Amelia, or Mimi for short, because Nora, one day when Amanda was pregnant, but before we had told Nora, asked Amanda if there was a baby in her tummy, and Amanda said yes, and Nora said, "It's a girl and her name is Mimi."
Oh,
and this was like really early on before we knew the sex of the baby, and we were like, okay, like we can go with that code name. And so from that day on, she was Mimi, and then we named her Emilia, Emilia, to make it all kind of work. We backed into that name. And then we liked the 3 years apart thing. So 2 years after, when Mimi turned 2, we actually have a friend from our temple who is a social worker for an adoption agency based in Dayton. And we loved that Dayton connections. We had lived there and loved the community for 8 years. We had determined that we would adopt locally as in the state of Ohio. Yeah. So we found an agency that focused in Ohio. We had also noted that we were flexible to take older kids. And so we started that process when she turned 2. And then we started in the summer of 2019 with a lunch with Paige and just kind of asking about the process. Paige was our social worker. And she walked us through the process, and we were ready for the journey. And at that point, we had the room set to go from that point on. And anywhere from baby up to, 3-year-old kids' clothes ready to go, boy and girl, kind of just, we had everything sort of ready, and we were just kind of waiting for our match at that point.
And
that was a really long answer to your question. Sorry.
How do they determine a match? Like, how does that work?
That's so interesting, because you put a life book together, and that's a really interesting process. It's kind of like, how do you convey who you are and what you're all about in 10 to 15 pages? Do you know those books that you can make from like Kodak.com or right, where they'll kind of print your pictures together? It was kind of like that. So we took pictures that we felt represented our family, our extended family, how we interact with our daughters, and tried to share who we were about, what our values are, why we wanted to adopt, and convey that as best we could. And I'll tell you, you have to be good, because there are a lot of families in the that want to adopt, which is a wonderful thing, but you have to be patient in the process. That means there's a lot of potential matches for each child. And then we had COVID. So we had, right as our home study was approved and we were able to start taking matches, COVID happened, and we weren't really sure what kind of impact that would have on the whole process. So there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of waiting for us. But then the agency would send an email when there was a potential match. And we would kind of determine, is this one that fits for us or that we're comfortable with? But there weren't a ton of those emails coming out. So we generally threw our hat in the ring on those things. And then if you reply that you're interested, you get a state form that kind of lists the whole health history and family history and situation for the potential, adoption, the adopted child. And then can, make a determination if you want to continue going forward. And then with Brady, we got an email, subject line, little boy B. That was the first email. And I kept that email. And I check it out every once in a while. And, he was an older kid. He was 2, almost 3 at the time. And we determined, hey, that was within our parameters. And okay, so we don't have to do sleepless nights and diapers for 3 years, things like that.
Yeah.
Been there, done that a couple times. So we were open to it.
What were his circumstances? That was he in foster care? How did he come to be where he needed to be adopted?
Yeah. So Brady's was under guardianship from his great grandma, his step great grandma. So she was sort of the last person standing who was really able to care for him in a full-time way. His we don't know who his biological father is. The grandparents are not in the picture. His mom is a wonderful person, a good person, but has had some struggles with addiction, and so wasn't in a position to care for him. Although we're in contact with her and Facebook friends with her and are happy for her to see updates, but just wasn't in a position to care for him. And he was living with his great grandfather and great grandma in Dayton, and his great grandfather passed away, and his great grandma, who is now Grandma Pat for all my kids, it's extra grandma. Who, I mean, you can't have too many grandparents, or
No.
That's our view. She made the determination that she wanted him to be in a family, have a full family, which we're so grateful for. And so she put him up for adoption as the legal guardian and custodial guardian. She was able to do that.
And did you meet with her, during this whole process? Were you having contact with Grandma Pat and with Bio Mom?
Oh, it was the adoption bachelor, 100%. Yeah. I mean, we got down selected to, I think, 15 families that I don't know if that first cut, but there were, I guess, 15 life books, kind of about us books that went to Grandma Pat. And from there, she made a determination of certain families to connect with. And we started with a phone call. And man, that is such a neat thing to have this phone call about this child and ask questions. And you're in the back of your mind, like, oh my gosh, this could be my son. It's different. Having had 2 daughters, biologically, it's sort of like the pregnancy, I guess, in a way. That's kind of where your mind was, the amazing anticipation for this child coming into your life.
And how did he do when he was brought to you, like with his grandmother and stuff? That must.
And had you before you get there, I just wanted to know, in the process, did they involve him at all in what he might feel, or who question. He might connect with?
Yeah. So I don't know prior to us meeting him. Well, actually, that's not true. So we did a Zoom call with him, but he was like a flash going across the screen. He was 2.5 at the time, and was just not super able to focus, and probably not. He's not fully comprehending kind of what's going on. So we saw him. We saw pictures of him. My gosh, he's so cute. We saw this picture of him at Halloween. That was the first picture we ever saw, when he's in this little wolf costume. I can send this to you because it's so cute. But then we got down selected to 3 families, and then we did now bachelor equivalent, like your at-home visits, right? We went down to Cincinnati and met him for a day, and we planned, it was 2 days, but we stayed in a hotel. And Grandma Pat, we spent a Saturday and a Sunday with him. And so we went down to the Cincinnati Aquarium, which was one of our favorite places to go when we used to live in Dayton. And, we walked up and saw him there with Pat, and he ran up to us and gave us big hugs right away. And my daughters gave him big hugs back. And I mean, he called me daddy right off the bat. And I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. And at that point, we hadn't made a final determination or Pat hadn't made a final determination on which family, but the weekend went so well and it felt so natural. And so I think she was watching how he interacted with the families. And, my daughters were just wonderful with him, like so excited. And I mean, there's never been any kind of question from them at least that they've ever articulated to us, like Brady's not really part of our family, or, you know, it's always like, this is our brother and let's go, you know? And with Mimi, she's 4, he's now 3, they're 9 months apart. So there was almost an immediate twins dynamic going on there. And it just went really well. And so then we spent the evening with them, and, you know, we were wrestling around and playing. And the next day we did another activity together. We went to breakfast, and I mean, it just felt supernatural. So then we said goodbye, went back home, and just waited for word on the decision.
That's heartbreaking.
How long was that wait?
So I think it was maybe 2 weeks. Yeah. Pins and needles. And I know she was meeting with other families. And then I was at the State House, actually, on the House floor, about to do a vote. And I got a call from her, and she said, well, it's you guys. It's, you know, it's you. And I was so excited.
Wow.
Called Amanda immediately, you know, like texted her, I have news. And, you know, we both celebrated together. And so that was middle of December. And then by, I guess it was December 18th. I got to go back and check the exact day.
That's my son's birthday, December 18th.
Well, that's our gotcha day. I don't know if you call them gotcha days or like if you grew up with that term, but our friends, we have many friends who've adopted, and the day that they got their, you know, took custodianship or guardianship of their child, they call their gotcha day. So it's like a second birthday. So that was, so we got Brady, I think it was December 18th. And, you know, actually it was planned to be after the holidays. But Grandma Pat got COVID, and and was unsure if she is his only source of care. So I got a call saying, can you come get Brady? And our agency had said, yep, we're cleared. And so we did, and we've had him ever since.
And how often does he see Grandma Pat, and does he see his mom, his biological mom?
Yeah. So we have set up a couple of times to meet with his mom, and she hasn't been able to get there. So, and she, you know, I don't want to share too much about that.
Understandable.
Just, for her privacy. But we're friends on Facebook, and she likes our posts and updates with Brady. And I mean, I think she did an incredibly selfless thing in terms of, you know, kind of understanding what the best situation for Brady was and is. So we're really, it's an open adoption, which I think it's kind of the way it seems most adoptions go these days, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
And you saw my tweet, like Brady knows about, he's adopted, and sort of he's starting to understand in his mind, you know, he wasn't in Amanda's tummy, but he grew in her heart, you know, and we try to help him like truly understand what that means. Because at that age, he may be literally thinking that. So we're trying to, but he gets it, right? And we're really open with that. And with Grandma Pat, she's been up a few times. She had Brady, she asked if she could have Brady for a weekend, a grandma weekend. We said, sure. We've met them at the zoo. You know, she's kind of articulated, I want to be there for milestones and things. And we love that.
Yeah.
Now, we've told her, next time you take Brady, you're going to have to take Mimi too. And Mimi is Mimi was a middle child before we even got Brady. She's like, she's
a 2 for 1.
Yeah. So Pat is like waiting for that perfect weekend to take Brady and Mimi.
I really like that you have the grandmothers involved, and that he can then ask questions later. And how's she doing health-wise? She's
doing fine. Yeah.
Oh, good.
She is. And we're very happy to involve her and have her in his life. When we did a picnic when Brady's adoption got finalized, and she came up for that, and we get to introduce her to everybody, and their minds were kind of blown, our friends, because they hadn't met any member of Brady's biological family yet, or, you know, his pre-adoption family.
Yeah.
And so I think that was neat for her and neat for our friends to meet his great grandma.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just blanked on what I was going to ask you.
Oh,
How has he, I'll edit that out. How has he adjusted? Did he have any ups and downs, smooth sailing?
Yeah, I don't know that you could ask more from a kid in terms of, a total life change, new house, new family, new school. I think the really great thing was that Pat had Brady in a really structured routine, and a really supportive, great environment. And so that foundation was really great for us. I mean, and it allowed him to be able to make that adaptation really well. And he's also, despite being born addicted, with open sores in his body, and he is meeting his milestones, both from his progression. So he has done remarkably well. And I mean, I mentioned that he called me daddy, and that was just how the term that he always used for Amanda and I. But I mean, it just flowed naturally into me sort of being caught off guard initially the first couple times I heard it, like, oh wow, that kind of blows your mind. This kid is calling me that. To I don't give it a second thought now. I mean, that's how quickly it's sort of just naturally progressed for us. He actually sleeps through the night. Our daughters really don't. Never have been great sleepers. So whoever gets to put Brady down has the easy job at night.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear he's doing well. I mean, because it's a big upheaval for him. It's a big switch.
It is. And he loves his school. We've got a great neighborhood where he's got a lot of friends. He's in gymnastics and soccer, and he's done t-ball. And, so he's doing all these fun activities, loves his sisters, fights with Mimi. Like, they have their arguments, like they upset each other if they look at each other wrong. Like, we're driving in the car, Brady's looking at me. Well, Mimi's looking at me, and like, look out your windows.
Yeah.
Look up. I don't know. I've got a sunroof. Look up. So it's like, but it's a real, like, typical sister brother dynamic.
Does he have any other biological siblings that you know of?
He doesn't. Yeah, not that we're aware of.
Go ahead, Louise.
I was going to ask you about your sister too. So your sister was adopted, and was she younger or older than you? And then she probably went through adoption more or less how Sarah and I went through adoption, I'm guessing. More.
Yeah, she's younger. She is the youngest. So it's my brother, biological brother, and then Amber was adopted, and later in life too. So that was just she came into our lives and needed help, and just quickly kind of assimilated into our family. And then my parents.
How old was she?
She was in her teens.
Oh wow!
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a different dynamic, but it was something my parents and Amber felt strongly about, and I certainly loved. And I mean, I mentioned in this case that she's my adopted sister, but most people don't know that she's adopted. I just refer to her. Yeah. And she's Aunt Amber for my kids, of course, and is wonderful and loving and supportive. And so, I mean, I experienced that. For me, I was an adult when that happened, but there's no difference between my relationship to my brother and my sister in terms of like how we feel as a family unit. And so I saw how quickly that line can blur and right about what does family really mean.
Yeah.
And have never felt that it's just about like a biological blood relationship. I've always felt that it's about love. Right. And so that, has really held true for Brady and us.
It's great in terms of really knowing, Brady's background and all that. Like Louise and I came from that era of, what did they call it? The big baby sweep or something, where just thousands and thousands and thousands of babies between 1950 and 1970 or something put up for adoption, closed records, knew nothing about, we were the having to go to the doctor and saying, no, we don't know our medical history and all that stuff. So it's a completely different world now.
100%.
So it's good that, he won't be growing up with those questions. And he'll have his own set of questions, obviously, but just in terms of not knowing anything about his background and, so it's great. This is the best case scenario for.
Yeah. And it's nice that you've had the experience too with your sister, just knowing the full circle of all of this. Is he frozen?
I've frozen.
Hello? Should I pause it?
Yeah.
It dropped.
Oops, now I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Now can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries.
I was like, wait, he's
those
not
things
moving.
happen. Technology.
Yeah, my internet just dropped there. Okay. Switch networks.
That's why we have editing.
I'm so interested by what you were saying too. I don't know if you need to go back or want to go back and say that
I was saying that it's great. Like that when we were adopted, we knew nothing about, it was closed adoptions. We couldn't get any information. It had to file this and wait for approval. And, growing up, having to put on your medical, like at the doctor, no, I don't know my history. I was adopted, and not even knowing what, your genetic history or ethnicity or anything. So it's really great how far we've come in terms of you get to, and your open-mindedness and willingness to understand, he will have questions, of course, later in his life, I'm sure. But it sounds like you guys are really open to anything that he might feel or need. And that's great. It's a different understanding than how it was when we were adopted.
Yeah. The conversation, we didn't have a lot of conversation about it, and he can openly talk to you about this. And it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. We've been public about it because we want to do our little part to normalize it and just say, look, we were reading this book called Families, Families, Families to our daughters for as long as they've been alive. And it's a fantastic book. If you get it, it just talks about all the different kinds of families that you can have. And so I think we helped them understand that was normal. And we want to be open about it because we actually think it's a special, neat thing. Like it's that makes us, I don't know if unique's the right word, but just it's something that we should call out and note that it's like, and that's how it's been received. I was mentioning earlier to you before we were recording, but I'm in politics, right? And it's one of those issues that it's bipartisan support for adoption. And so it's been kind of neat. The governor, who's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but the governor sent us. He owns a minor league baseball team, and he sent a signed ball from the team for Brady and a ball cap from the team that he owns. And, I've just gotten amazed. A book from our Secretary of State, who's a good friend of mine, different party, but he sent a really neat book on voting to Brady, which was so cool. So we've gotten this neat bipartisan connection. And it's nice to have issues that transcend politics these days.
And it's nice that you're in the conversation, because that's something Sarah and I are trying to do with this podcast, is have conversation go forward about adoption, be more open and discussed, and take the shame out of it for the biological mother and for adoptees as well. Because there's a lot of in our era, there's a lot of non-communication about these issues, and
or we were told to feel lucky, which has its own set of, because then that's implies all sorts of things. It's a sticky subject, and it's a layered subject, and there's a lot of emotions and feelings and different perspectives about it. So it's good to talk about it.
Yeah.
I agree, Sarah. And I struggle too. Like, am I using the right words when we talk about our biological daughters versus Brady, right? It's like, what is the right sort of way to talk about, there is a difference between them and us, although Brady happens to look just like us, which is kind of,
I saw those pictures. I was like,
but they know, and Brady knows, and our friends know that right? So how do you talk about those differences in a way that still makes him feel like there's no difference in terms of our love for him as our son, right?
Right. Your love is not different. You love them all. Just that his circumstance, he's from a different biological family, and that will be something he'll think about later in life.
I'm curious, have you reconnected with your birth parents?
I found my birth father, it turns out, wasn't alive when I finally was able to do the search. My birth mother was alive, and I met her, and I had 4 siblings from her. So I met all of them, and then we were in reunion until she died in 2009. Wow. And one of the other siblings died as well. And then I'm still in touch with two of the girls. So like my sisters, I feel like they are my sisters. So.
Oh, it's nice. That's nice. I mean, it's, yeah.
And I've met my biological mother's side, and my biological mother died in 1977. So I didn't meet her. And then I do know who my biological father is, and I haven't gone down that road yet.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, how you sort of handle that coming into that as an adult after so many years of not knowing,
It's the weird thing about it is when you first, Louise and I talk a lot about this in our podcast. Like one of the things that when we both had our children, my son, like it was like I'd never met anybody from my own DNA, so that was really. And that spurred me to want to meet my biological family.
Wow.
So
that was big for us. Like when we both have sons who are older in their 20s. And when we first had our kids, we're like, whoa, I'm related to somebody, and that's kind of a big thing for adoptees. In fact, when they do have children. So that's,
and then meeting, like when I met my biological mother, I mean, we looked just alike and had the gestures that nobody else had, and weird speech patterns, and it was mind-blowing.
Wow. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, which Brady he knows his great grandmother, and so he'll have already experienced that. So
yeah
it'll be normalized, really.
Yeah.
And it just in a broader context, I don't know if this is silly or not, but like Amanda and I love the show This Is Us, and
I love that show.
We love that show.
I love that show.
I can say it.
Cry every time.
Cry every episode. I'm like, toward the end of a show, I'm like, I'm not going to cry this time. Oh no, I'm crying. Okay, no, it's happening. And it was kind of cool. We were going through our adoption, process as we've been watching this show, and it's the big 3. That's what they call the kids. And they had 2 biologically, and then they adopted a 3rd. And, so there's parallels that we feel. And it's kind of like, we kind of feel cool, it's like, hey, we're like, it's like, This Is Us. It's like so we're,
do you call them the big 3?
No, actually we haven't, but now that I mention it, I feel like
I think you should do that.
We call Brady and Mimi the Littles.
That's cute.
Aww.
As Nora's the big sister and loves that big sister role until they want to share her toys with her.
Until she's a teenager and Mimi's taking her makeup. So.
Well, that already happens with their play stuff. I mean, I tell you. But but they are our big 3, and I just love. I mean, having the 3rd kid. It's more than 2. For sure. And one of them's always pissed off and one of them's always missing. But other than that, I love the energy that's in that when they're in the house. I mean, and sometimes my in-laws who live close by will have the kids for the night. And, it's like, hey, yay, it's just the 2 of us. But then it gets kind of quiet.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we can do one night, but we need them back,
Bring them back. Aww.
I still feel that way. And my son's in his 20s.
Oh, I know. Empty nesting is.
Oh boy, that's a whole other.
We're like, please call.
Topic.
It's been 4 days. I have the please call, please text. It's been a long. What are we, day 5?
Oh man.
Oh man.
Crazy.
Well, thank you so much. This has just been a really great. I'm so glad this happened. And
me too.
Thanks to Twitter and
thanks Twitter. It's eye-opening too. It's good for us to hear like a whole different way things are being done, and just your family sounds wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you are out speaking about these issues. And I mentioned I subscribed, and when I drive down, I have a 2-hour drive each way to the State House, and I mostly listen to podcasts when I'm to just try to decompress a little bit. And we've got a session next week, so you're queued up, and I look forward to being a listener, because as a parent, I want to hear about these issues. I think it's so important, things that I'm not even thinking about as not being adopted myself, that I think you're doing a tremendous service for the entire community, which I do consider myself part of by extension. So
and you are.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll keep, we'll keep checking in to see. I hope you post pictures of the kids.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I know them now.
I just struggle for like, I try not to overpost, but they're so cute. They're so cute.
They are so cute.
They are really
cute. You
have
a beautiful family, and keep fighting the fight. We'll be following your career.
Heck yeah. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.